did
Dad, it's
listen.
great. It's great having you on Testify.
It's awesome. What was the hardest part of your life?
Your story. This is your story, Dad.
I want to hear what was the biggest pain in your backside.
Yeah, no.
No, thanks for coming on.
It's good.
Thanks for being here.
Good to.
Am I on now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Were you born in New Zealand?
Yes, I was born in New Zealand in a little township, Otahu, in New Zealand. Just on the border of South Auckland, I suppose you could say, if that's not part of South Auckland. Little maternity hospital there.
Middlemore, was it?
No,
it wasn't even.
It was a birthing area, hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was to Kathleen Gray, isn't it?
That's right, that was my mum.
Yeah. So how old was she then when you were born?
I don't know too much about my early history of my life, apart from, she gave birth to me. I think she'd come from Samoa when she was about 21.
Oh, yeah.
Lived in Auckland. And then Mum and I, Sharon and myself, we'd sort of figured it out. She was mostly about 29.
Oh, really?
When she had me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And then what? How long did you live in Auckland for?
From there, I was up for adoption. It was
from birth.
Not I. That's the part I really don't know. But from the stories I've heard, or it's been relayed to me from my auntie, who was my mum's sister, who brought me up.
Wow.
Yeah, she said I was up for adoption 18 months or something, because that's when family and friends who were over in New Zealand at the time heard about it and took me back to Samoa.
So you were birthed in Auckland, up for adoption. Your family heard about it.
Yep.
And then auntie came and picked you up and took you back, or someone did?
No, it was my mum's, one of my mum's brothers. There was 13 in her family.
13 siblings.
So, and Marshall has seen some of my uncles and aunts. They have a condition which is an English condition where the eyes, you almost think they were Asian, but they were drop eyes. So they were little sort of slitty eyes, and I don't say that in jest or fun, but that's just the way they were. So they had real eye trouble. I think Marshall has seen some of my uncles, and when they read the paper, because cataracts was bad, they would be up like this.
Hard up.
Yeah. But big people too.
Yeah.
So you're not going to say anything mean about it today.
Yeah, but that was just island people.
So you got picked up from Auckland to Samoa. How long did you live in Samoa?
I lived there till I was about 7 or 8. Then my auntie, who then took me in the family and brought me back to Samoa, back to New Zealand.
Oh, so Auntie Elsie,
Yeah.
Elsie was in Samoa.
Yeah, she lived there. She was a divorcee and had separated and...
no kids either herself. No kids herself.
No, she didn't have
So she
children.
just took you in?
Yeah, well, it was a family thing, just like the Maoris do, and a lot of cultural things. Sometimes if the family's too big, they'll pass the newborn to the next family member or whatever. So in this case, it was my mum's sister, Auntie Elsie, who brought me up.
So she
took me back to New Zealand. Because she wanted me to have an English education. So she did such a great job.
So it wasn't until you were 9 that you actually met your real mum again?
Yeah, pretty much, yes. There was not much relationship with my mum in those early days. You know a bit of my story with my mum. If we knew what she had then now, she mostly had postnatal depression,
Right.
and they treat it as a mental thing. But I don't know if there was anything else that happened during her lifetime in New Zealand.
Yeah.
But, so they treat it as a mental situation. So Mum had hell of a life, really. She had shock treatments, heavy medication.
Common thing, eh? Still is. They still sort of do it.
Yeah, and then she was in and out of mental asylums pretty much all her life. When the children came along, Jane and Marshall, we got her to see Jane and Marshall.
Yeah, I remember going to see her.
Yeah. But she was, when we did have her out, she was always under heavy medication. And as the medication wore off sometimes, she really disliked me. And she would start to swear at me in Samoan and, yeah.
So you had no other siblings?
No siblings.
So you didn't know your mum well?
Didn't really know Mum well, although as she got older, because Sharon and myself were in the rest home industry after a little while, we took her in. She was in some homes, rest homes or caring homes, and then we took her into the home that we had for a short time. But, she died in a home, rest home. Yeah.
And
she
then
was
you
quite
didn't
young.
know your dad either?
Don't know who he was. Apart from photos and letters that were sent to my mum, we did a little search because when I married Sharon, she said, it'd be great to know who your
have a look
dad
into it.
was. Even if it was for the children, because Jane and Marshall would ask me down the track when they got a little bit older, said, it'd be good to know who your dad was. But I said, to Sharon, I said, the guy's most probably made a life of his own.
Yeah.
Why disrupt it? And I just didn't want to go there.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So I just left it. But then looking back, I wish I had have.
Yeah, right.
So
you brought back from Samoa by your auntie, who has been divorced and has no siblings, no
kids.
children herself. So you were brought up by a solo auntie, basically.
yeah, was. She was an amazing lady.
Yeah, she
She
is.
must have been.
She was.
Is she still around?
No, she died, and so did Bobo, her little dog. She had a little poodle, black poodle, and
Flea-ridden thing.
man, oh, she was the little Bobo. She went. That little dog went with her everywhere, because Auntie used to walk around.
It wasn't
Yes.
Mary had a little lamb. It was Auntie had a little Bobo.
Fully riddled Bobo.
So you're back in Auckland, and she just wanted you to be educated in English type thing.
Yeah, she.
Better life over here or something.
Well, she wanted me to have mainly education, what they call in Samoan palangi education, English education.
Is that so? Did I understand? Is palangi and balangi, or is it palangi? Palangi.
Palangi.
It's not balangi.
No,
Oh,
but it
wow.
sounds like
It sounds like balangi.
yes.
Is that what it
Palangi.
sounds like? It's
I've always
palangi.
thought it was balangi,
Oh.
like B. So it's palangi.
P.
So my first language was actually Samoan. So, because Auntie wanted me to learn English, so although she could speak great English too, she was really good. She could speak Samoan, fluent Samoan, and English. So when I came home from school, she wouldn't talk to me in Samoan. She would just say English, English. And so I lost a lot of the language, although I understood it quite well.
So you're not fluent anymore in Samoan?
I can speak. Over the years, it's been like, I suppose you could say, pidgin Samoan, which is, I could speak part of a sentence in Samoan and then, what was the English word for that? So I would say the English word to join it up.
It's pretty common, eh? A lot of Samoans speak like that, eh?
Yeah. even some of the guys I talk to now.
That's cool. So you went to school. So you're actually half Samoan.
Yeah, I am. My mum was full Samoan, but
What did you say?
Hafakasi.
Hafakasi, yeah.
Oh, half caste.
I'm a half caste.
Yeah, I can speak Samoan.
Yeah.
Hafakasi.
Yeah, half caste Samoan, but lost a bit of the culture as I grew up. But I was always in a Samoan family, really. I had cousins, had a lot of cousins.
I bet.
Yeah, had a lot of cousins. We've gone back to Samoa a couple of times, Sharon and myself, and my uncles and aunts, which I don't know, they would say, "Oh, this is your cousin here, and remember him?" I'd be standing there, this white boy in amongst the dark guys.
Because you are fair, eh? For Samoan.
I am. Yeah.
And you got green eyes.
Well, we're English extraction to my great-grandfather, apparently jumped ship in Samoa, married a Samoan lady. So, yeah, so I've got the English side of the family, I guess.
Do you know what your dad was?
If he came from my dad.
Yeah.
Oh, my dad. We did a little search on him. We got somebody to do a search for us, and we gave her some photos because that guy was in army uniform. So he was a US personnel person from the States, but we found out if it was him, he was Hispanic. So his name, my name would not be Gray, it would be Lopez, something like that. Yeah.
Marshall Lopez.
I remember Marshall.
Sí, señor.
I remember Marshall doing a preach at church he was at before. And you know how Marshall digresses sometimes when he's preaching? Maybe. All of a sudden it's something else. And I don't know, this part of the service, all of a sudden he sort of, oh, by the way, yeah, I could be part of JLO.
JLO's family.
You know, the singer. So the people cracked up laughing, and here we are. So really didn't know him. We did a little search, but the closest we got to going by the uniform that the man wore was he was Army personnel in the engineering division. She just went off the uniform. She did research into the services, the Army, the Navy, Air Force. Wow. And the closest she could get to was a person in Massachusetts, in the States. So there's mostly a little bit of that Hispanic. So he was Hispanic, yeah. So
you cannot see it.
So was that a question you had for a long time? Like, who's my dad, or like that type of thing?
It didn't really sort of bother me apart from when I was growing up, and because I love sport. Give me a ball, any type of ball, and I would just love it, you know. But my main goal was rugby union, and the situation was quite difficult when it came to socials side of things, because I only had my auntie really. So when it came to social situations, I would just withdraw. You know, I'd be playing some sport, whatever it was. On the sideline there'd be mums and dads cheering their kids on, and so after the game, I would just sort of, you know, it was a great game or whatever it was, and then go.
And who picked you up and dropped you off? Because Auntie never drove, eh?
No, I never had a car. I didn't have a car until 2 weeks before I got married. Yeah, so Shanks's pony or just walk or bus, all my life pretty much up to married life.
So you were brought up Samoan in Auckland, but the English way. So, but Auntie would have taken you to church, right?
Yeah. As you know, most most islands, that's all the islands, they're really religious people, and some of them are great Christian people, but Samoan culture was every Sunday we had to go to church. Their Marshall and the family have seen the village that I lived in, school I went to over in Samoa. Every Sunday the bell would go and everybody be in there. I always remember as a young fella, my auntie would starch my shirts. If you know what starch is to make your clothes really white, but it was just it made the fabric quite stiff and hard.
Yeah.
And of course I had to wear a tie with this white shirt and a tie, and it was quite uncomfortable. So went to church most of my life pretty much, but
Even over in Auckland as well?
yeah.
Yeah.
When we came back from Samoa, Auntie was in Pacific Islanders Congregational Church in Newton, and so I just was in church most of my life. But she was a praying auntie. I would hear her at night praying in Samoan, and I understood that, but she was, and she'd take out her little hymn book in Samoan and sing, and I'd hear all of this even in my young age. But so I was brought up in the house most of my life. Yeah.
Do you remember when it became like your own thing, when it became real for you, when you had somewhat of an encounter with God? Or
Yeah, I can't tell you the day when I accepted the Lord, but I knew God accepted me anyway.
wow.
But I think it wasn't until I was about in my late teens that somebody read a scripture, read it or heard it or whatever, however that happened, Psalm 68, verses 5 and 6. Verse 5 was the one that really, really showed me that I had a dad. He says that scripture says he's a father to the fatherless and he's a judge for the widow. And that was a great realization. I had a dad. Whatever I was doing up to that stage, he saw. He was there for me. Sorry. And that's a realization that day. And here we are, we just celebrated Father's Day.
Yeah.
I knew I had a dad.
Oh, that's amazing.
Do you remember roughly how old you were?
I guess I was about 18, maybe 17, 18. I don't know. It was mostly my time to really know that God knew me. Even though I went to church and heard about the Lord and, but it was never here. It's always up here.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I was thinking about this yesterday when Taylor was sharing how much damage can be done just in one generation, like just one person not looking after their kids or someone running out on their kids or whatever. And when Taylor was sharing about her dad, this guy on the right,
the big fella.
yeah, and then I don't know who said something about your upbringing, but it sort of dawned on me how the opposite has happened, how you not having a dad and growing up how you've done, then raising your kids the way you have, that then your son has been a father and an example to people that has just changed so much and has created like the opposite of what you had, which is present dads that are really intentional about their kids. And it's only something that like it's actually just mind blowing. Like and that's all come from you. That's come from your walk with God. That's come from with you, how you raised your kids. And it's crazy because really, Bob, like, man, like even how I parent my kids, everything a lot of what I've been taught has come from really intentional stuff. Like I've got great parents. My dad's always been around. My dad's a great dad, but yeah, it's actually crazy, eh? Not just me, heaps of other families are fully, and that's all stemmed back from you, which is just like God's just done his thing. It's powerful.
Yeah. And I guess that's the witness and the testimony. Sorry. Of what God can do in a person's life.
Redemptive, eh?
Yeah. Sometimes these are the sort of things that really get to me, and it wasn't supposed to be like this.
It's good though. People need to
But
hear
it's
it.
just how it affects me in a good way to sort of think, hey, yes, from what you've said, hey, I've just about, I think it was just after we moved over here from New Zealand, I woke up early one morning and I was crying. It was absolutely worse than this. Worse than this. And it was as if I just felt like having a human dad hug me. Wow. And I really missed that.
Yeah.
But, a lot of people know me and I love to give people a hug. But as you said, Sam, this is my story, and maybe God has preserved me from, I don't know what my human dad would be like, I really don't know. I've heard some stories, horrific stories of dads, human dads, who've just beaten their kids to nothing, and I've seen it. I've even seen it within my family, my cousins and what have you. And I'm thinking maybe I know God has just preserved me from that. Yeah. Even when I was growing up, I really didn't get beaten up or anything. My auntie used to really, she'd pick up anything that was close to her and give me a whack, but fortunately I was a little bit faster than her. But that's just, I'm not saying it's the island way, because it happens in any culture. Yeah. Dads, mums get angry, so hey, whatever it is. But I just feel so privileged that I didn't go through any of that stuff, Certainly as I was growing up, I got into fights myself to just stand up for myself, but never had a beating as such from a family.
Yeah, like you said, you never know what the alternative was, having, if your dad was around, that's a really valuable thing to think about, to reflect on, because we always think we're missing out. And I didn't say what I said to make you emotional. I'm more just, it's more just like thank you. And it is a real, it's so what the heck? How can God do that? And you should not, I don't want to pump your socks up too much, but you should look around the community and you should be like, man, God, thank you for what you've done in my life, because there's families here that are changed because of you walking with me. You should be, I don't know if proud's the right word, but I think that's the only word
I'm truly thankful. Yeah. Absolutely. When Sharon and myself got married, one of the things we talked about because Sharon lost her dad when she was very young, 5.
Really?
Yeah. So here are two people who've come
orphans,
together,
2 orphans.
had no dad. She had a mum who brought up 4 children at that stage. I remember, if I can digress back, when Sharon first met me, and church that we belonged to, which became the family church. Sharon was there for many, many years. Her mum and some friends came over to my uncle, which was my auntie's brother. So I used to go from auntie to uncle to uncle's places.
Moving around.
Yeah, moving around. My auntie we didn't have a permanent home. We would, move around different places. And she worked so hard. She had 2-3 jobs but she gave me such a great life. But just to digress back, I first met Sharon, and it wasn't long after I'd come back from the island, so my English was mostly not so good. But her mum and friends from the church went over to my uncle's place because in the end, they had 6 children, but I think at that stage they had about 3. And they used to help out, just what church community does. And and Sharon happened to see me, and I was on a swing set, which had swing and a seesaw and slide. And she come up to me and said, "Can I have a swing?" and mostly the only word I knew in English was no. So,
How old were you then?
And it was love at first swing.
it was.
You'd have been 10 or 11.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think
you
might have been even
for that
9.
Yeah.
I might have been 9.
Oh, 9, yeah.
Yeah.
So Mum would have been like 7.
So from that time on, and I had started going to church that we belonged to with my uncle, who got converted at Church of Christ. So I started going with them to church. And when Sharon was 14, she said to Mum, "I think I'm going to marry Bob Gray."
No way, at 14.
At 14.
What's the age difference between you two? Same age?
Oh, just a year. Yeah. Sharon
And
is...
that's kind of like you and Rochelle.
know.
What?
Yeah.
I'm very much like my mum.
Yeah.
Because I said that when I was 15 to Rochelle. Not to Rochelle, but
No way.
I said to the Lord.
Her mum reply was, "We'll see."
So when did you find out that she said that? How old were you?
Well, I was mostly 15 at that stage, but I didn't know. That's just what Sharon and her mum talked about.
Yeah, so you didn't find out that till years later.
no.
When did you start dating?
We went to school together.
Yeah. No, I went to Mount Albert Grammar.
Oh, they walked to
and
school
then
together.
Sharon went to Avondale, but because of church situation, I guess it almost seemed, this is how I felt. I felt as if I was the kid on the wrong side of the tracks, and even though I like Sharon, it was always discouraged. So she could have other guys over to her place for tea and all that. Bob Gray was not allowed.
Well, her family a bit upper class.
No, it was just a church situation. So I
just
can't
a
really
different
say I had a great courtship.
Just because it's a different church.
No,
And because
the church,
of...
the eldership, like the church looked after my mum's family because when mum's dad died, the church really came around.
Oh, okay.
Because mum's brother also died young. So the church was really protected them and helped them and
Instrumental.
supported them. And so I suppose they really felt protective.
So it was kind of good.
When this sort of island kid that can't speak English comes in knocking
Doesn't
around.
want to share the swing and
Yeah.
But anyway.
So maybe that's sort of, we're going to look after this family.
Yeah, okay.
We've invested so much.
Which was a great thing.
Yeah.
Really. And that's what I guess church should do.
Yeah.
And they do.
Yeah. Maybe felt a bit possessive. Maybe overstepped the mark, maybe.
Yeah.
So when did that change?
when I married Sharon.
It was through the window. It was through the window until then.
Oh, yeah, we had to.
Sneak.
Sometimes when things like that happen, it caused us to sneak around, if I can use the word sneak. So my uncle had a 39 Chev. It was a beautiful car. Big long gear stick, floor start, and immaculate condition. So I guess this is revealing a little bit of, I suppose you could say, naughty. I would go and pick up Sharon from Mount Albert, where she worked, on a Friday night in this great big Chevy. It was a beautiful car. And so I'd pick her up and we'd just go around the corner and just have a little cuddle.
Back up.
Pack up.
Was that a brand new car?
Actually, he got it from the nunneries, like the nuns, and it was in mint condition. It had boardwalks on the side. When you hopped into it, they had a rope, because those days there were bench seats, so they weren't
no
separate.
seatbelts,
Yeah.
no.
So you got the nunneries under the name for mafioso.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's the nuns. That's the nuns.
It was perfect. It
Did you
really
feel
was.
like, because I remember when I was young driving like a brand new car, and I was like, or just a nice car, I was like, oh, I'm the man. Were you like the man in that
Oh
thing?
yeah, man.
Did you light it up there?
Oh yeah, I was careful because it was a big car, and I made sure that I kept it that way too. Wow. But it was a beautiful car. So here was I taking out my girlfriend.
How
and
old
those
were
were the
then?
times.
How old were you then?
I suppose it was quite, because we had youth club and got to know Sharon, but as Marshall knows, when he started going to youth club, boys on one side, girls on the other. It was so strict.
So no one was looking straight ahead anyway. Everyone's just like,
Everyone's over. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know,
what row is Rochelle sitting on? I'll sit on that row so I can just.
yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Was it the same church you guys started singing?
Yeah. Oh, well, the Vandy family, as Graham spoke quite a while ago, he sort of said, Sharon was one of the brave ones that stood up. Your mum stood up and would question things.
Oh, that doesn't sound like Sharon at all.
Why are the boys on this side? Why can't we mix? The boys had to, at a certain time of a Saturday night, we would move from one area to the next, but the girls had to go first and then the boys came later. It sounds weird. It almost sounded, dare I say it, cultish, but it was just the way it was brought up those days,
And that was a decent sized youth group.
You knew it,
It makes sense. When we've had sleepovers here before, girls upstairs, boys downstairs, and like, even though you're like, yeah, that makes sense. But back in the day, a bit more strict. Oh, I get it. Would have been weird, but I get it.
I guess, as Marshall said earlier, it was this guy who's from a different culture. That's how I felt, that I couldn't mix with. And that drove me further into being lonely. I was quite a lonely guy in many ways, although I had friends, but they were friends that I knew but didn't know the real Bob. And I did a lot of things by myself.
So you couldn't,
really
because you moved around a lot, etc. You couldn't have friends over for sleepovers and come over for dinner and all that sort of stuff.
No.
Yeah.
No. As later on, though, we had camps, men's camp, and that was a thing in itself as well. And they were great, great camp. They had a great campsite. Absolutely beautiful swimming pool. Since I've been asked this, I've just been recalling building some of the church. It was working bees, and the group of men and women that came along to the working bees, there was a real unity to build the church, blocks and mortar. But I always went to working bees, anything that entailed the house, and you know what I mean by the house of the Lord. I was in, boots and all.
First
And
there,
that's-
last to leave.
Yeah, and that's just over my married life. Although I became too religious in that, church was just, I just loved to be in the house. I really did. You know, but I took it too far, and I always remember coming home from a pre-meeting, like we had meetings. You don't know.
Yeah.
5 on Sunday. On Sunday it was 5 meetings. You had the pre-meeting, then you had the main meeting, then you had a happy hour, then you had another pre-meeting,
Yeah,
then you had
the
a
night service.
Sunday night church.
And then you had Tuesday night.
Tuesday night. Yeah.
And youth club on Saturday. So,
When did you see your family?
yeah.
It was only after I got married that.
When did you ask the question? How old were you?
No, I was 23, 1970. We got married.
So you guys have been dating for
Oh,
kind of quietly for a few years.
yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, still living with Auntie. By that time, I'd done a trade, cabinet making trade.
Are you a cabinet maker?
I am a cabinet maker by trade.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was my trade.
Geez, that's one of the trickiest. No, it is. I learned yesterday.
One
when
of
I
the
was,
most meticulous.
Yeah, when I was moving around my moving around some cabinetry, I was like,
I'm just-
that's a few mil out now.
I'm such a detailed person, really, in many ways, and I think it's just the apprenticeship that I did. I worked every overtime, so I had a 5-year apprenticeship. Did it in 4 because I worked every overtime, and
Actually, they finished you a year early.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, and then did my courses that I had to do to get certificates and what have you. So I was quite diligent as far as time and management, as far as time and being on time.
Hard worker.
One time Marshall and I had a chat, and I said, I'm a real time freak. I hate to be late to anything. And if I am late, oh man, the rest of my day's out of time, out of whack. It really is. But so I'm a stickler for detail.
So when is that the same with like God as well? So when you give your heart to the Lord, when you had that revelation of He's my Father, He sees everything. How did your walk with the Lord sort of? How did that look?
I guess, I can honestly look back. There was only about 2 or 3 guys that I really got to know in my Christian walk. But they weren't deep things, They weren't the issues that as a young man or as a young teenager was facing. I had to sort of find out some of the stuff myself, I didn't have a man that I could, a mentor or an older guy. The simple reason is over the years, men would come into my life, but they said, you can trust me. And, all of a sudden, or whatever I shared with them would be broadcasted everywhere. So it just made trust in me sort of, I'm not going to trust anybody at all, The only people I would listen to if I was a coach and it was to do with sport, that's who I listened to. But when it came to Christian things apart from, I was diligent in that too, that I read my Bible, prayed. But, people say, when did you accept the Lord? I can't tell you when I accepted the Lord. I just knew that God accepted me. And if that it might sound crazy. How do you know that you're a Christian? I know. Deep down, I know that God loved me, still loves me. He's a guy who's failed in many situations, many situations, but hey, I just know God's love, a dad's love.
So you've done.
Excuse
so
me.
you sort of have you don't trust any sort of role model. So then, being a husband and a father must have been like a roller coaster for you, like just trial and error, just mum trying to work it out with you.
Yeah. When we first got married, I don't know if I mentioned this, but we had a chat and we said, when children come along, we're going to do the best that we can that we missed out on, that our kids won't miss out on. So Jane and Marshall, they came along, and as you know, Sam and Marshall, babies don't come with an instruction book, how to bring them up. You just do the best you can.
Yeah.
And over the years, now that the children are off our hands, we have great-grandchildren, 9 of them, and now we have a great-grandson. But Sharon and myself, if we go to a mall or park, we sit back and we watch young couples with new children, and the little fellow or the girl might throw a tantrum and we're sitting back and we nudge each other and we'll say, we'll see how they handle this. So, but here we were, young, didn't have, Sharon had a mum. She was a great mum too, excellent mum. And here I am, a dad. What am I supposed to do? But I just did the best I could at the time, and hopefully it worked out. And but through all of this, God was always there.
Yeah.
He, whatever it might have been, I wasn't rich by any stretch of the imagination. Worked hard, but God always brought us through. He always did, and I'm so grateful.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful. It's powerful, and I those older people, older generations in the shops. Rochelle shared about it, and then I've had people do it to us once. Don't hold back from encouraging them. I've had the kids dipping out in the shops and had someone come up and just be like, "You're doing a good job," and in that moment you're just like, "Oh, flip," because I'm about to give the kids a hiding, and I'm embarrassed because they're whatever, and then someone that just goes, "Man, just tells you it doesn't even matter. Don't worry about anyone else. You just do your thing. It is
Doing
what
a
it
good
is."
job.
Absolutely. I didn't have a really a role model to sort of say, when kids reach this certain age, this is how you treat them. As they grew up, Jane was the one disciplining her. She would cry as soon as I said, "You better go to your room, I'll come and see you later." Marshall, he'd be waiting for me and he'd sort of want to debate, "What happened, Dad? Why?" There'd always be the whys and the why, what fors,
But let's look at this a different way, Dad.
What for, Dad?
But Jane, poor little Jane, she would just start crying as I guess she's got my nature in a bit of soft, but there's a hard exterior, there's a hard part of me that, hey, I won't stand any nonsense if my kids are getting beaten up or Sharon gets spoken to, I'll stand up to it.
Yeah.
But there's a soft part of me, which I'm thankful for too, I really am. When I look at Chapel community, there's so many dads, so many older guys there too, and I'm thinking, we need to encourage you guys, the younger ones, because it is difficult, more so I believe nowadays than it was in our time. I just encourage all the men.
I think community is important, right?
Yeah.
Because then
Absolutely.
we do have role models, we do have examples, and we can ask questions and get input. Otherwise it is a bit of a facade. Otherwise you end up sort of trying to manage what your family looks like in the community rather than just being.
Yeah, it's true.
And just open to receiving input and encouragement and asking questions and finding out what works, what didn't work, you know.
That's what I love about chapel is, and you know, people say, "How long you been at chapel?" And I'm saying,
From the start.
pretty much ever since it started.
Yeah.
But you know, the story is, it's a great story. When Marshall first told me, we were at Point Wells, and we just had Christmas dinner. That was our last Christmas dinner together, and then we all started walking to the beach, and just noticed Marshall just hung back, and Zach was in a pushchair at that stage, and I was so I just walked slowly with Marshall, but the others kept on going at their pace, and there was distance between us and the ladies, and Marshall said, "Hey, Dad, I got something to tell you." I said, "Oh, what's that?" He said, "Oh, we're going to Australia." And I said, "Oh, great, you're going for a holiday?" And he said, "No, we're going to," just felt God saying to us that we need to plant a church. So my reaction at that stage, I was taking a few seconds to sort of take it in. And I said to Marshall, "Oh, that's great. It'd be great to come and see you for a holiday and a break." And then I said to Marshall, "Look, God has told you to do this. You better go and do it." You know, I said, "I'm your dad, but I can't override God. You know, if God's told you to do this, go and do it." And here we are. We're here now, and took 9 long years for Marshall to get Mum and Dad over, but there was other
I tried
responsibility.
for 5 years. I said,
Always the plan, eh?
Yeah,
"You got 5 years, Dad. Get over here." But you know, Mum's
yeah.
pretty tough.
There was responsibilities back at home,
Yeah.
so need to take care of that. And but God has just overridden a whole lot of stuff, and you know, there's things that could have destroyed me and our marriage, but God is faithful.
So what's
He's a good dad.
What's one bit of advice you'd give? You know, you were a young dad with no sort of reference point in your own life or Mum's life for a dad. What's one sort of bit of advice you'd give to, you know, in hindsight, now that you're a great granddad? Yeah, what would you say for maybe some of those tough years where you felt really alone and isolated from input? What sort of encouragement would you give the likes of Sam's generation, you know?
I guess within the community that we're in, chapel community, there should be no excuse for the older generation to get close to. I was just thinking about this yesterday and part of this morning. I'm thinking, you know, some of us older guys, but then it has to come from the younger ones to accept.
Yeah.
To accept the older fellas that might just want to walk. Well, not even fellas. It could be a couple, older couple that can just walk alongside. And I would just encourage the younger ones to talk to some of the older couples that have had life experiences.
Which all have. Which all no, it's something I'm over the last couple of years I'm pretty passionate about it because they all have.
Yeah, we all have. Maybe the generations are different. You know, we came from a generation where there was a family unit, really, whereas now family units are busted, are broken.
Family unit, no dad, no mum. Oh, what? No siblings.
Yeah.
There's a family unit back then.
But
I think we're just speaking for.
yeah, I suppose I could have stayed as a victim.
No,
No, there you go.
but
No, that's
also,
true.
Yeah, but also the family unit is is even more busted up now. It's
Yeah.
like, no, you're not a dad. You can be whatever you want.
Well, yeah, I suppose coming from what you've just said, no family, really no role model. How have I done it? I haven't done it. It's because God loved me.
Wow. Love that.
And if I can just encourage, I think all the men folk or even the women folk to get alongside some of the young. I love young people. You know, most of the people I get to know is the young ones. I go up to them and say, "Hi, what's your name?
good.
What are you doing?
Good.
Yeah, what sort of work are you doing?" They might say, "I don't know." I said, "What would you really like to do? What would you really like to do?" And some of them will say, "This is what I'd like to do." And I said, "Well, hey,
Go for it.
just open up to God and He will make a way for you." And it's just been amazing to see the results of some of the young ones, not only here in Australia, but back in New Zealand, different ones I've spoken to. And you can see the face change, you know. There's somebody who believes in me, you know. And I just think us older fellas, if that's answering your question, Marshall, you know, what is one thing that we just get alongside someone, you know, maybe someone like, I'm not blowing my own trumpet here, but sometimes as I come out of chapel or going into chapel and I'll see somebody just standing by themselves, I'll just go up and say, you know, I'm aware of how to approach and that, of course, and I just say, "Hi, great to see you. I haven't seen you before. What's your name?" And just introduce myself. And I've had people just come back and say, "Hey, so nice of you to talk to me." It doesn't have to be much, but just be aware of people.
That's good.
And married couples too. Yeah, we can sit back and nudge each other and say, "Let's see how this young couple's going to handle it." But hey, maybe give a little bit of advice or just a help. You know, don't have to step into their shoes. You know, just be there for them.
It's awesome.
But
good.
yeah,
I love that, and I think it's something that we are great at, or we're okay at Chapel, and I'd love to see us continue to improve because man, the older generation, they know, like, even though things are different, even though things have changed and what young people experience now is nothing like what, but it's like, it's actually all irrelevant. What's relevant is like, it's just the experience of going through change, of family, you know, heartbreak, loss, all that young people can really learn from spending time with, you know, our salts, for example. So it's great advice.
You're talking about change. It's harder, I found, harder for the older generation to get into the now generation because you guys have grown up with cell phones and electronics.
Everything.
You know, when I ask Marshall or the grandchildren, "How do I do this on the phone?" They're going, "Yeah, Dad, it's done." I'm saying,
How did you do?
"Show me slowly."
Yeah.
They don't know how to do it slowly, and I get stuck.
But you can't. That's what I mean. But that stuff's nothing really. What is everything is like what you said, like family, being a dad, all that. You can't. Well, you can get education. You can learn from what we have in the palm of our hand, but the experience and listening. But it also takes maturity for a young person to go, "Oh, hey, I actually want to spend time with these older people and listen." Anyway, hopefully I'm getting there, Bob. I'm getting there.
Well, you know, I just see the younger generation, and not even in chapel community, but outside. Sometimes the young couples, young people, they're wanting something, you know, but sometimes, as you said, Sam, it's just the maturity.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's maybe the grey hair or the lack of hair, that there is. I sort of think sometimes, what can I offer? But then I look back and see what God's done in my life, in married life, my children's lives, my grandchildren's lives. I'm grateful.
There's a lot.
Totally.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
To be offered.
So much. But it's only because of God.
Amen.
Yeah. And our yieldedness to Him.
That's good.
Amen.
That's important.
Well, thank you for today.
Thanks
for
Dave.
your time.
Yeah, it's been great. I hope, as I said, I get so soft in certain aspects of my conversation.
It's really good. We need that. Makes me feel better about myself because I'm pretty soft as well.
Yeah.
That's good. Marshall's pretty soft.
I'm not hard, man.
I'm so proud of my children. Marshall, Jane, Jane, if I can just finish on this, Jane and I were talking yesterday just about life, and as they grew up, I held my kids up, dedicated them to the Lord, and Marshall chose the good road, Jane said. And unfortunately, Jane said, I didn't. But hey, the road led back to the right road.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Amen.
So it's great.
Yeah. Praise the Lord. God is faithful.
All the time.
Amen.
All the time.
Thanks, Pops.
All right.
Thanks, Pop.
Thank you.